You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for January 28th, 2022. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where the Lincoln Day banquet featuring John Meacham has been postponed until June due to COVID. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
Hi, everybody. That's very, very local news.
It is.
Super local.
Yeah. Well, you want some more local news?
Sure.
From our local paper, we learned that John Meacham's mother is a former Springfield resident and is married to the very Reverend Robert Brody, who is the former dean of the Cathedral Church of St. Paul Episcopal in Springfield. So, we've got that going for us.
John Meacham's mother's husband.
And she is a former because everything is, as we discussed last week, you got to localize it.
You got to localize it. If you don't localize it, and what a wonderful reason for John Meacham to come to Springfield and give the Lincoln Day banquet.
Except
is that a partisan thing?
I don't think so.
I think that's a historical lecture.
I think so.
I believe. And
neither his mother nor his father or stepfather live in Springfield anymore.
Right.
So it's former.
Mm-hmm.
She's a former Springfield resident. Although you never really leave, as we've learned.
I thought it was that your furniture remained stuck in the 1970s if you live in Springfield. But
it's mandatory. That's we joke that the first question you get on any job interview for any job of any importance in Springfield is, "What year did you graduate from Lanphier High School?"
Right.
And there's a whole lot of truth in that. If you're if you're looking for any kind of work of an influential nature, you better be born here. You better have gone to
high school here, or and some of that is just kind of cloistering. Yeah, it is.
And many of the people I know who I like and do perfectly good work, you sort of step back, and I stayed quiet because I had to figure out. Oh, your mom is married to his dad. And his cousin runs that organization. And it's just a bunch of families. It's the five families.
It's the five families of Springfield.
It's more than that, but it's not a lot more than that. No. And it's,
small town. 110,000 people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And, they're talking about getting a bathroom downtown, which is pretty exciting.
They are. A public washroom. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about the public washroom downtown. It's a high time, I think. There's a public restroom downtown. Local businesses support it, but it's a big controversial.
There might be illegals using it. Is the problem?
Well,
that's it might welcome illegal immigration, and we don't want that.
Well, we'll just say a bad element. We don't want a bad element downtown.
We like legal bathroom use,
right? When I first moved here, and this conversation has never stopped happening. It's homeless people, panhandlers, and parking, and police downtown, especially. Every other area is like whatever downtown. And I kept scratching my head, going, "What panhandlers? Oh, you mean those two guys?
Two guys? Yeah.
It's like I worked in the Loop. I lived in Chicago. I'm like, what are you talking about? What parking problem are you talking about?
The 7 people that you see downtown?
Same 7 guys.
Same 7 people. Yeah. It's not.
A parking problem? You mean you had to park a block away from the bar to get there? Oh, no. Oh, no.
And it was free. And it was free to park because it's after 5. It's free downtown. Yeah.
Apparently it's a very big, it's a lot of concern.
Well, I just knew I was in a different part of the world when the former mayor, in the summer concert series, said the concerts had to be over by 9:30 because people got to sleep.
People are trying to sleep
on Saturday night in July.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still light out at 9:15.
Okay. Well, he's out there catching fireflies on his lawn.
And watching for the streetlight to go on because that's fun.
it was described to me.
We love it here. I don't want to say anything. We're just making comments because this is where we live, and we choose to live here because we love it. So
and there is a vibrant, tiny liberal community in this town, and we know all of them,
and a intense arts community.
Yeah.
Music, choral music, theater.
We got Frank Lloyd Wright House. We got Lincoln's Tomb. We got all kinds of stuff.
All the Lincoln you could possibly want.
Yeah, more Lincoln than you ever knew you needed.
Yep, exactly.
No, I think John Meacham got invited to this thing because he wrote a biography or whatever.
Andrew Jackson is his new book, so I think they're doing like presidents of the 19th century kind of thing.
He's also, I believe. I hate that I know this much about John Meacham because I don't really like John Meacham. He's just kind of a pious, back in the good old days when Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill would get drunk and fondle each other. America was a much like, God damn, man. But I think he was George H.W. Bush's biographer too.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And just, if I was forced to trade, I would trade the politics we have now for the politics that John Meacham fondly remembers, in the knowledge that the politics John Meacham fondly remembers was on a straight downhill path to the politics we have now.
The politics of today. Right. Exactly.
It is a little Twilight Zone-y because it's how far back do you have to go to stop what we're living through now?
Yeah.
And, we're always that guy in the Twilight Zone who's trying to warn Lincoln not to go to the play.
Right.
Don't get on the Titanic. And we always fail because you can't change that. And it is getting me personally, speaking only for me, exhausting being that guy over and over.
Well, it's the curse of Cassandra.
Yeah.
Would you rather not know the future? Would you rather not be able to predict what's going to happen and be innocent and happy?
Oh,
and whatever you say is sort of accepted by the people around you. But instead, what's going to happen.
I'll tell you what, make me that offer December 2022 and we'll talk. How's that?
Well, and that's the thing. We got to keep our spirits up. And it's kind of hard these days because, the whole week since yesterday when we found out that Justice Breyer is stepping down. And the immediate response from the mainstream media was liberals forced him to do it.
Right.
Which is BS.
Right. Well,
it's as if this 83-year-old man who's clearly fully cognizant of who he is and what his position on the court is and what needs to happen and who Mitch McConnell is and all of that made a decision.
He did.
And based on everything he knows. And he wasn't forced by anybody to do anything.
No. Well, you don't force the Supreme Court. You bribe them. I'm pretty sure
I think that's happened. Yes.
Donald Trump has bribed at least one person to get off the court so he can make an appointment. But because that was sudden and unexpected and okay. So we can install a fine young cannibal on the court who'll be there for the next 30 years.
Right.
But it's just there are people out there trying really hard to keep spirits up. And I try to be one of them. I fail more than I succeed sometimes, I realize. But I mean, the people publishing, here's all that Joe Biden and the Democrats have accomplished in 1 year.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty impressive fucking list.
We're over 6% growth annually for 2021.
Yeah. Well, and just, what has been passed and how many lives saved and how much has been done and how much has been pushed through and how much, how much the courts have been changed forever by the rate of approval of judges.
Right.
There's a lot of things to be spirited about. And it is just a matter, we keep stubbing our toe on two assholes, one from West Virginia and one from Arizona. And they're in charge of stopping everything. And I get when people get really frustrated with the Democrats, but it isn't the Democrats. It's two of them. It is literally 4% of the Democrats in Congress.
Yeah, and I'm kind of tired of people claiming that there's a whole bunch of Democrats hiding behind those two Democrats.
Yeah,
and it's like, Well, if they're hiding, then they're probably still going to vote the right way because they don't want to be the ones who are voting no.
Because
against their president.
We just had a vote, and all but 2 voted in favor of it.
Right.
All but 2 voted in favor of yanking back the filibuster, carving out a little bit of the filibuster. All but 2. So, but there is just this cottage industry of, and you and I both know where it comes from, and I think we're pretty clear about what the motives are, and that it's just it's hard to lean into that hurricane of bullshit with your little flag of hope going, this giant hurricane of bullshit is being generated by a relatively small group of people with an enormous megaphone and a shit ton of money. And it seems unstoppable because you have 70 million, reprogrammable meatheads who will just do anything Sean Hannity tells them to do. And then you have people in the middle screaming that Democrats need to punch hippies if they want to win, if they want to stomp on the base if they want to win. And between them, it seems formidable. But there still are a whole lot more of us than there are of them.
Well, and let's not forget who the president is. And he's made some really strong signals this week. We're going to talk about this.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
That he's not taking the bullshit.
No.
All right. So we've mentioned that there's an upcoming vacant SCOTUS seat, and Joe Biden has told everyone he's going to keep his promise. He's going to nominate a black woman. She's going to be young. She's going to be progressive. And she may make decisions that are a surprise to and might disappoint us. We always know that when you appoint a SCOTUS judge for life, they can surprise you and disappoint you from time to time.
Just ask Nixon, man.
Yeah. So
Earl Warren, worst mistake I ever made.
And this is why not the Heritage Foundation, the other one, the Federalist Society decided, okay, we're just going to pick them off the tree from now on.
Yeah.
We're going to grow Supreme Court justices who vote the way we want them to vote.
We're gonna grow them in a tank and decant them as needed.
Pay for their education and grow them so that when you pick them, we know how they'll vote, and there will be no surprises. We hope. Even then, you're in a lifetime appointment, and you can, in that environment where you are with other Supreme Court justices, change your mind. You can do that.
The immediate reaction from Mr. Charlie Sykes on the announcement that Joseph Robinette Biden was going to appoint a black woman, because that's what he promised, that's what he ran on, that's what he's going to do, was that basically this shuts the door to a generation of young progressive jurists. It just tells them they have no future. And first of all, Charlie Sykes pretending he gives a shit about young progressive jurists is fucking hilarious.
Oh, yeah. And he said it disqualifies the future Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That's right.
From being on the court.
No, there is one opening at this moment, Charlie.
Yeah.
And there might be future openings, and then things will be different then. If your party doesn't fucking steal them.
Right.
And secondly, I have my deep issues with Tom Nichols. And I'm not going to give up on any of them because he's an angry old lady who yells at everyone about everything all the time, and thinks I'm a moron, thinks liberals are morons. But he did
How did Tom Nichols get to where he is? What is his qualifications?
He taught at the War College, which is hilarious to me. He taught people advanced threat assessment, even as his party was turning into a fascist party in front of him and him not noticing it. And he's been on Jeopardy. He was a Jeopardy winner 5 times, I think. Oh. And he wrote for foreign policy or something or other. And, he's just one of those guys who got, look, Tom Nichols says thus and so. And they needed a bunch of people to stand in the breach between to say, we never saw it coming. There's no Republican. You couldn't have seen it coming. It isn't our fault. And liberals are still idiots, and we need them to steer their party in the direction of Mitt Romney 2014 to save the Republic. And liberals are idiots, and liberals are morons, and liberals are scum. And he's that guy, and he doesn't give a shit. He blocks everyone on Twitter who disagrees with him. But in this one case, he weighed into it and said, Charlie, here's the thing. Remember when Ronald Reagan promised to appoint a woman? Ran on it, did it. Remember that? Remember when he did that? because I don't see any difference between Ronald Reagan promising I will appoint a woman to the Supreme Court, and Joe Biden saying I'll appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
And that really made Charlie Sykes upset. And I watched them kind of
Reagan.
Yeah,
because it was Reagan. Talk about Reagan in that way. Yes, yeah. Right.
But
right.
Between
cancel
the two,
culture.
I'm sorry, cancel culture. Yes, we're getting back to cancel culture. I think as words are my business, there needs to be an antonym for the word cancel culture. I had suggested shelter culture, something to describe organizational cultures which don't cancel people. Instead, they actively protect smarmy, always wrong hacks who definitely would have been sacked for complete incompetence long ago if they worked in any other business. My favorite is my own, which is clutched pearl clutching culture, which I admit is hard to say, but you got to admit it's clever. So clutched pearl clutching. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. See, that's how hard it is. I've invented a phrase even I can't say. Cultured pearl clutching culture, which uses the word culture twice, which is unbearably clever of me. Cloister culture has been suggested. Connected to this, the pearl clutching culture is also when a failed political philosophy turns to M&Ms and Minnie Mouse's pantsuit to distract their viewers from the criminal investigations their favorite president is facing. And there really is this, and I'll talk about it in greater depth later, but this just hysteria over something that just isn't terribly important and doesn't influence much of anything, because there's a big group of people, a small group of people with a big megaphone who need the issue to not be them.
Right.
And it has to be both sides. The liberals have to be doing something equally heinous to the Republicans for us in the middle to keep pretending that there is a middle and that it's the place to be and there's lots of us here. Now, you pointed out that Biden has signaled to his base that he's kind of with us.
He's kind of with us. He's really been signaling a lot to his base that he's kind of with us, not just with the Supreme Court choice, but the Peter Doocy situation of calling him a stupid son of a bitch. What a stupid son of a bitch. And you made me watch some West Wing this week.
I did. I'm sorry to do that, but you know how
he's not allowed to do that very often. In fact, we
have a rule.
When YouTube then started another, after you showed me that clip, YouTube started another West Wing clip, and I just about lost it with you.
Stop,
and you said,
stop it.
Wait, you
stop
said,
it.
Give me 9 seconds to stop the YouTube.
Yes. Stop it now. Stop it. Her ears are bleeding. And
then we had to say, we're not mad at each other. It's okay.
No,
our marriage is fine.
Are we still going to be married tomorrow?
God damn you, Aaron. I still want to be married to you, was what he said to me.
Fuck you, Aaron Sorkin. We both hate you. You've ruined our marriage, just like you ruined Lucy and Desi's marriage.
Yeah, no. And you said, I still want to be married to you. And I said, oh, of course we're still going to be married. It's just that at this hour of the evening, when I was dealing with some indigestion as well, all of a sudden, here comes more West Wing from YouTube.
Yes. So to calm your stomach, I will say, to calm your stomach, I broke out Ayn Rand and began reading passages from Atlas Shrugged.
The old, temper toner, Ayn Rand's previously unpublished works. Yeah.
Well, I figured I'll make such a distracting, painful thing that the relative pain of West Wing will seem delightful in comparison.
And long time listeners of this podcast will recall.
Yes.
We are in the season of what we call Hanukkah. And
yes.
I guess I can say that because people know who youngest child is. Her birthday is
coming up.
Yes. It's 2 months after Christmas. And so the day after Christmas, we start the season of Hanukkah.
Right.
Which is prepping for her birthday.
which is peppered with constant reminders of the countdown clock to my birthday.
To my birthday. My birthday's coming up.
It's only a month and a half, and it's only a month from now. It's only 3 weeks from now.
So it was the night after, that evening after her birthday, on the day of her birthday, when I'm lying down exhausted because It was a very full day. When I think she was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And that's a time when this year she wants money and she wants to drive to St. Louis to shop with her friend and goodbye, Mom. So it's going to be a much easier time. The difference between 9 and 19 is quite huge. But yes, when she was 9 and Driftglass decided to read to me. I'm going to read to you from Ayn Rand.
Let me read to you now from Ayn Rand's
and
unpublished
I said, no,
work.
No, you are not. You are not going to. I am going to fall into a coma now. But Driftglass did play a clip from The West Wing.
I did.
Which was President Bartlett using a gun reference about his opponent, a .22 caliber mined in a, what was it? A
357 World. Calling him stupid, basically.
Magnum
Calling him
World,
stupid.
right.
Yeah.
And it was hot mic moment. Oh no, the mic was hot. Oh no.
Oh no.
And then his press secretary later in the show says, you knew that mic was hot because you don't use gun references.
Ever. Yeah.
And you were totally knew exactly who you were talking to and exactly who's going to hear that a certain way. Good going, sir. Good going, Mr. President.
Oh, that was old school, sir.
Yeah, that was old school. And here's Biden at a press briefing.
Yeah.
Sitting. He didn't move. He didn't turn off his microphone. The microphone was right there. And here is Peter Doocy saying, is inflation going to be bad for the midterms? What do you think? It was a stupid question.
Yeah, well, all of his questions are stupid. And Jen Psaki, he exists to give Jen Psaki something to punch. He's like her Alan Combs.
Yeah,
he's there to say the dumb thing so she can punch him in the face. And she does a great job.
That's a good flipping of the script, too, because that's a Fox News creation.
It is.
And when Biden called Peter Doocy and said, nothing personal, pal.
Yeah.
That to me was just a sure sign of, it is nothing personal. You're an idiot and you were hired by Fox and Fox is bullshit.
Right.
And I'm going to say that to my base so that they know I'm on their side.
Yeah. The complete phrase from the Godfather lexicon is it's nothing personal. It's just business.
It's just business.
This was just business. Peter Doocy is just a big turd sitting there waiting for someone to kick him in the balls.
Punching bag turd,
and he deserves every bit of it. He deserves zero. No one from Fox News deserves the respect you would accord to even the lowliest journalist.
Yep.
Because they're not journalists. They're a fifth column propaganda shop set up in the middle of our democracy, designed to tear the democracy to bits so they can rule over the rubble. That's what they do.
For money and a career in television, they've sold their souls. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
I do think Biden is signaling to people.
Yeah.
I'm going to please the Democratic base because I'm a Democrat. We talked about that last week. So talk to me about red letter media because you watch a lot of that.
I do. I get on these jags. I watch a lot of Gunsmoke, and then I compare everything to Gunsmoke. And I eat a lot of popsicles, and I think, it's be good right now, popsicle. And I've been watching some of the old red letter media reviews. And these are the guys who did the famous Star Wars review.
So fantastic. So fantastic.
9 videos, whatever it was, 4 hours of breaking down the Phantom Menace. This is why it failed. And
you think you won't sit and watch 4 45-minute videos on the Phantom Menace.
No, they're
but
genius.
You will.
They're fucking genius.
You will.
And they're interspersed with this subplot of, the guy who's telling you this is a psychopath who's murdering people in his basement.
Yeah.
Which it's fine. That's your, because it's a little TV show with guys from Milwaukee who are film guys. But they were talking about the Blumhouse model. And the Blumhouse production company is a company that makes money by producing a ton of cheap, forgettable shit, all for under like $5 to $7 million. And their theory was that the business model of Blumhouse is that their job is to keep Hulu's movie library stocked
with relatively new stuff,
with stuff, if anything, titled, and just like, then compare it to a buffet line. If you go to a Quentin Tarantino movie, you're going to a 5-star restaurant. You know what you're going to get. You're going to pay for it. It's going to be really good. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be everything you thought it was, or, you know, whatever. It'd be worth discussing. It'll be an experience. This is just chocolate pudding and chicken fingers and steamed broccoli and other brown shit laid out in a buffet line under heat lamps. And their job is to just keep that shit stocked because they produce marginally edible shit, but lots of it. And all of their stuff is introduced as from the producers of 1 or 2 pretty successful movies you may have heard of. And the guys do go through like 15 of their shitty movies, all of which are introduced as these are the people that produced a couple, 3 movies you probably heard of because they made, you know, 3 or 4 movies that you probably heard of. You might have seen. I didn't see any of them, like Happy Death Day. Things like that. Horror movies, you know, cut them up movies that made a lot of money, that had an audience. So, you know, these guys, well, maybe it's good. Maybe I'll watch it. And what Hulu is paying for is the illusion of scale and prestige. They have a lot of stuff on their shelves. And I'm convinced that that's what both sides media moguls, people who pay money to keep people like Tom Friedman and David Brooks and their ilk employed, are doing. They're paying for the illusion of scale and relevance. There's, and I think I said to you yesterday, you know, at the Rolling Stones concert, they don't give a shit about the people who are in the balcony. That show is being put on for the people who are paying $10,000 for the front row seats. And the reason the New York Times op-ed page exists is for the small number of rich New York assholes who want to believe that there's a middle ground, there's a center ground, there's a centrist ground, who are all friends with the Schultzberger family and all want to share in the same fantasy. And they never go out. They never talk to actual people. They never deal with the real world. These are all CEOs and college presidents, and they really, really want to believe that the real problem with the country is that both sides, the extremes on both sides, won't listen to them, won't listen to Larry Summers, you know, and that's the problem with the country. And they're willing to pay a lot of really second, third, and fourth tier hacks to crank out both sides do it, both sides are bad, look out for both sides. Ooh, look at the woke liberals. Oh my God, look at cancel culture over here, just to keep the illusion going. And they crank out a lot of it because if they crank out a lot of it, they can say, look, average people are in favor of this stuff. Look at all the stuff out there that proves that normal average people like you and I are turned off by the extremes on both sides. And we should all gather in the center where Tom Friedman is. And there is no center. There just isn't. And the fact that this tiny group of rich, cloistered idiots keep insisting that there must be, and keep funding no labels, and keep funding the New York Times op-ed page, and keep Meet the Press on the air when it should have been canceled 20 years ago, is evidence that there's some force at work that has nothing to do with the actual size of the audience or the actual message the audience is being told, because that's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It must be that we're satisfying the fetish of a small group of wealthy people who want to look at the TV and the radio and the newspaper and the internet and see their weird fetish reflected back to them as normal. We're the normal people. And the rest of you assholes out there are crazy. And the problem with that is it plays directly into the conservatives' hands. Because every time the conservative right takes another step into outright fascism, the centrists need to find some reason why liberals are just as bad. And that's why they keep, you know, Brett Stevens and David Brooks and Tom Friedman employed at the New York Times. And just
and I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please, no, go ahead.
I think there's also that's sort of the macro story. The micro story of that is these very wealthy, insulated white men, you know, work. First of all, if they ever show up in the office, I'm surprised. They work in their multi-million-dollar mansions and type and send it in. And if they need any contact with the office, an intern drives over and picks up what needs to be picked up and drops off whatever needs to be dropped off. And that I think is my point, is that micro story is, you know, the C-class of people who David Brooks talks to on the Acela trains and so forth. All of those white men have unlimited immigrants to deliver their lunch to their secretaries.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
And so they don't have to interact with New York City, the real New York City.
Right.
But they derive all of the benefits of living in a very blue, very diverse, very open
world city.
Blue city.
Yeah.
Solid blue city.
Mm-hmm.
And that connects exactly to what we're dealing with this week in watching Sarah Palin eat out with COVID.
Right.
She's having $17 soup with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's
some
positive.
New York Rangers DJ, some hockey player, retired hockey player, waiting to sue the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And she apparently tested positive on Monday for COVID.
And went out and
went out with her new boyfriend.
Lied about her status
friend.
and because she wanted to do the New York thing.
Right.
And they want places like New York to be there so they can visit them and enjoy all the culture and the diversity
and spend their money. Yeah.
And then they want to go home and bitch about the coastal elites who look down on them because they're inbred hicks.
Right.
Which is still true. It is that level of domination and because they're paying for bulk, they will uptake anybody who is willing to sort of play in that ballpark. Keith Olbermann pointed out, we'll quote him more directly later, but Keith Olbermann pointed out that MSNBC has given another hour to Joe Scarborough. Because they really, that's who they are. They're going right back to their, let's find the middle. Let's appeal to conservatives. We don't want to appear too far left because that's crazy.
Right.
And so anyone who's willing to straddle those worlds, that's why the entire staff of the defunct Weekly Standard was immediately recreated in the form of the Bulwark with $1 million donors, and were immediately appended, basically bolted onto the MSNBC structure, and given a shit ton of airtime because they're willing to go out and say, yeah, Donald Trump sucks. Donald Trump, it wasn't our fault. We didn't do it.
And that's their way out. That's the Republican Party's way out, is they'll just blame Trump. Yeah. And it was never us. And we're back. And here, sane Republicans are now going to run the country again. And so they'll elect Tom Cotton president.
Right. But what has become of the people, all of those Bush regime dead enders, the Steve Schmitz and the Rick Wilsons and the Charlie Sykeses and all the rest of them, Tom Nichols, spend about 80% of their time bitching about Democrats,
scolding Democrats,
warning Democrats, you're doomed if you're not going to do what we tell you to do. These are people who swear, again, to sort of tie this all up in a big bow. These are people who swear they and they alone know what normal average people really want. We stupid liberals don't understand. The average Hispanic in Florida wants ABC. And wait a minute, you guys didn't even know your own base was crazy until your base threw you out of your party.
Right.
And the first thing you did when you landed on your fat ass and came over to our house and said, can we crash here, is complain about the furniture, complain about our food, and start telling us how to run things and telling us we don't understand what people really want. We're we conservatives who swear we had no idea. Tom Nichols swears he had no idea the Republican Party had lost its mind until he quit in 2018, has the fucking nerve to tell us we don't understand average people. We don't understand what normal people want. And that's why they got swept into the MSNBC universe. And liberals simply never did and never will, because they are always out shopping for the Blumhouse pundits, for the people who will tell their audience, sure, Trump is bad, but liberals are bad too. And liberals and their cancel culture and the squad and the Bernie Sanders and the M&Ms and all of their socialism and all this crazy voting rights stuff they want, that's all crazy. And Democrats, and I've heard every fucking never Trumper say this, Democrats, you have one job, and save the country, and all this other stuff is just bullshit. Fuck you for telling Democrats we have one job. You're not a goddamn Democrat.
Right.
You hate Democrats. You've built your life around hating Democrats. And now you have the fucking audacity to come into my house and tell my party that we have one job and we're failing at it, and you should just shut up and do what we tell you to do. I don't listen to people who've spent their entire life stabbing me in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust you. I think that you're stranded out here in the middle of nowhere. You're the lonely
your analogy of the Russian Tsar and his family,
Russian aristocrats
bossing people around in their fur coats when they've lost everything.
Yeah,
and it's over.
They really are. They are Russian aristocrats who the serfs ran them out of their own country. And here they are in our country bossing us around, telling us what to do and why we're not doing it the way they like it. And why don't you cook food the way we like it? And fuck you. We saved you. You owe us.
Right.
Your life
is whole because we gave you a roof.
And so here's a thought. Spend 80% of your time saying Democrats are doing a pretty good job. Joe Biden's doing a pretty good job. We have this boom that we have. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's an unemployment problem. There's too many jobs now. And if you spent just a little more time explaining to people, the people who do listen to you, because you have a big audience, because the MSNBC megaphone people, the NBC megaphone people wanted people like you.
Advertising, yep.
If you spent 80% of your time not bitching about Democrats, I'm going to just jump ahead in our notes here just a little bit. Do you mind?
No.
I wrote a post this week called The Renegligans. Because there's a phrase that you all need to know called negging, which most of you know. We've probably talked about it before. It's from the Urban Dictionary. It's low-grade insults meant to undermine the self-confidence of a woman so she might be more vulnerable to your advances.
How does that ever work?
This is something that no decent guy would ever do. You break down someone's self-confidence by constantly insulting them and then saying, well, maybe I'll date you. I guess I could sleep with you. I suppose maybe I'm so grateful that this person who's been insulting me for years is paying attention to me now. Yes. And I took just one catchphrase from this vast lexicon of insulting Democrats constantly and traced its usage for a very brief period of time between Rick Wilson and Tom Nichols on Twitter. If I may.
Go right ahead.
Rick Wilson. As I like to say, they're holistically bad at politics. Tom Nichols. Since Democrats are holistically bad at this, I won't miss it. Rick Wilson. If Democrats didn't holistically suck at politics, they would blah, blah, blah. Tom Nichols. They're holistically bad at politics. Rick Wilson. Just a reminder why Democrats are holistically terrible at politics. Tom Nichols. Another edition of Democrats being holistically bad at politics. It goes on and on and on.
What is holistically? Why are they using that word?
Democrats are horrible at everything. Democrats are suck at everything. I would like to know the last election Rick Wilson won. Because he certainly blew his ass out in 2020.
Yes, he did.
We were promised, we were going to take down Lindsey Graham and Susan Collins. They wouldn't stand a chance with the Lincoln lads and their $67 million war chest and their ability to make videos. Democrats don't know how to fight, and they fucked everything up. They got people who would never stood a chance reelected out of spite, I swear. If you just tracked their record, they're great at getting Republicans reelected. So Rick Wilson sucks at getting Democrats elected. He's terrible at it. Tom Nichols sucks at knowing what Democrats think. But they are out there every single fucking day telling Democrats, you're terrible, you suck, you stink, you're dumb, you're clueless. Why don't you listen to us? Charlie Sykes, I swear, went through 10,000 resumes and found one liberal who agrees with everything Charlie Sykes says about Democrats. And then he put him on the podcast this week. Talk about how Democrats are stupid and Democrats are bad and Democrats don't understand anything. And Democrats need to stop talking about this and stop worrying about voting rights and blah, 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 blah. And I wouldn't care. But for the enormous microphone these people are given by the liberal news. And if you want to know why people are feeling a little bit bad about Democrats, I got to believe it's because, at least partially because, our allies will not shut the fuck up about how terrible we are. Anyway. I'll climb off my soapbox now.
I just want to talk for a moment about the MAGA lottery.
Yes.
Because this came to me this week, and I'm sure other people have talked about it before. people behaving badly at restaurants or coffee shops over masks or vaccine mandates, or shouting in the streets about, shouting at school board meetings about their students or teachers or CRT or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this week, for some reason, I saw one of these videos and I realized, oh, this woman wants to be on Hannity. And I hadn't quite thought of it that way before. I know other people probably have. But that dream of appearing on Fox as a hero of freedom is held out, I think, to a great many Republican
losers,
right? I was going to say voters, but I don't even think that's the case.
No.
Bad behavior for freedom leads to the possibility of Fox News fame, and they have on these plain folks on a regular basis who made some viral moment because they stood up to tyranny, quote unquote.
Right.
It gives them their 15 seconds of fame.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got that otherwise completely unimportant life where you will never make a dent in human history, that's a draw. And that's a reason to behave like that on camera. And I think it's interesting to put January 6th in that light too, how many people were filming themselves as heroes.
Right.
And expecting to be on Fox or on OAN or whatever, as I have said several times on Twitter, Laura Ingraham is not going to date you.
No. That store is closed.
Yeah. But that's the dream is Tomi Lahren will notice me, Well, no, she won't. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that. That is a motivator. That is the only motivator for behaving that way on camera.
Sean, I just happened to be there at the right time when the tyranny broke out.
Broke out at the library, and that little 4-foot librarian told me I had to wear a mask.
She was all of 4 foot tall, tough tyrant woman. Insisted I wear a mask. And I told her, no, I'm a free man in America, and I'm white, and I'm free.
She threw me out.
And she threw me and my child out, my poor child, who now this is the face of tyranny, son.
Yeah, right.
And I cried. I admit, I cried like a good patriot. Because there's no other places in America. First of all, I don't understand books at all, but I wanted to go to the library to test my freedom.
Freedom.
And there's tyranny everywhere. And Sean's just sitting there jerking off, nodding his head, smoking a cigarette. Yeah, that's great. Oh my God. Yeah, you certainly were oppressed.
You're a working class hero, that's for sure. Yes.
And that's who they are. And this is, I'm sure for a lot of people out there, I'm not unique in this. The exhausting thing is that the bad guys in this drama are so stupid, are so bad at being everything, are so irretrievably stupid, dumb. They're anthracite. You cannot get through to them. It doesn't matter what you say or do. And that didn't come cheap. That took a very sophisticated media and political machine about 30 or 40 years to build a base that is this intractably stupid. And to beat the mainstream media press to their knees to the point where they just don't even talk about it. They will not talk about the 50 Republicans who hate democracy in the Senate. They will obsess over why Joe Biden can't convince 2 people who were Democrats to vote for voting rights. No, it's not two Democrats. It's 2 Democrats and every person in the Republican Party. And if once the story stopped being the Republican Party is evil, the Republican Party is crazy, the Republican Party is the enemy of democracy, it's game over. Because there's no other story outside of that universe other than, well, it must be both sides then. If it's not just one party, then it must be both parties, right? So let's talk about what Joe Biden, why is Joe Biden's economic boom his Katrina? And let's get a lot of people who write stuff like that on our staff. I ran across New York Times John McWhorter this week. I was barely aware that he existed. He's one of those minor New York pundits who I don't care about. He found his lane bitching about the horrors of imaginary liberal wokeness and how anti-racism is the real racism. And he rarely leaves that lane. And this week, he used his Times column to provisionally acknowledge that there might be some naughty stuff going on over at the Burning Books party as well. But of course, he had to both sides it. This is a quote from John McWhorter. I'm genuinely open to the idea that censorship from the right is more of a problem than I've acknowledged. Our problem today is illiberalism on both sides. Twitter did its thing, dragged him for the ivory tower fop that he is, and up in his very high tower, the New York Times academic punditry, he responded to Twitter and said, and I might note that the sour, cynical Twitterverse response to this one from some quarters leaves me quite unmoved. Because why would he move? Why would he change his mind? He has no stake in any of this. The mob is never going to come for him. This is not going to, the worst thing that's going to happen to him is some student's going to give him a bad review at Columbia College or Columbia University where he teaches. Mm-hmm. And again, this is another example of, I really want there to be something, the antonym of cancel culture. Mm-hmm. A place where you doesn't matter how shitty your opinion is and how wrong you are, you can never be fired.
Well, I wrote a post this week about a Republican office holder in New Hampshire who introduced a constitutional amendment to have New Hampshire declare its independence from the United States.
Yay!
And this is you hear this now, and you're going to hear it a lot more. Mm-hmm. Talks of civil war and talks of seceding and so forth. And I just refer you to my post on this about this New Hampshire man from this week. New Hampshire, as of the latest statistics, has 19,032 citizens who receive Social Security benefits. Mm-hmm. There are 74 nursing homes in New Hampshire that accept Medicaid. And most nursing homes throughout the country depend on federal funds for over 50% of their funding. In 2019, there were 93,866 veterans in New Hampshire. U.S. veterans, by the way, eligible for benefits from the U.S. Department of Defense, the United States Department of Defense, United States.
Where you live.
But here's this libertarian right-wing jagoff who thinks New Hampshire should secede from the Union because of sovereignty, as he put it. Mike Sylvia, Republican, of course, state rep, Mike Sylvia, some believe that the question of independence has been settled. If so, then our state's sovereignty has been stolen. And so I wrote, if you secede, Mike, are you going to pick up the tab for the Navy base, whose mailing address is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire?
No. I want to keep that.
This Navy base is on the Maine, New Hampshire border, and on the Atlantic. Uh-huh. And the mailing address is Portsmouth, and certain facilities are in Maine, but it's right there. So whenever some right-wing dimwit talks about secession, ask them about the military bases.
Yeah.
Ask them about the Social Security recipients. Ask them about the Medicaid-dependent nursing homes. And ask them where they personally are going to get the money to pay for their quote-unquote sovereignty. Don't let them pretend, I paid into Social Security my whole life, it's mine, and I'll sue.
Nope, sorry.
Who are you going to sue, and where are you going to sue, Mike?
In what
federal court? You're going to go to federal court? You're a foreigner because you seceded from the Union.
You'll have to invent your own currency, like, Confederate money, which is yes. Which is not valuable.
See what that's worth to the nursing home where your mother stays.
And then pay for all the shit, and then make arrangements. Very much. So what you're talking about is Brexiting from the United States,
right?
All by yourself, with no. So you'd have borders, and you'd have border checks and passports, I'm guessing.
Well, this hilarious statement from Ted Cruz about we're going to keep NASA and the oil rigs.
No, you won't. You don't get any. You're gone. You lose.
Everything's gone.
No.
You lose.
No, we're moving all that federal shit, all that United States government federal shit. You don't get any of it. Nope. You quit. You left. Left. Bye now.
There are 62,000 nursing home patients dependent on Medicaid in Texas.
Hey,
for a roof over their head and a clean diaper.
Here is your senator. I guess he'll be your president or your prime minister or whatever he'll be in the new government. Call him. You guys elected him.
Yeah.
So enjoy your the Ted Cruz age of Cruz down in Texas. I hope you've already disconnected your power grid from ours, which we really appreciate. And
and watch out for immigration laws because we're going to build a wall around New Hampshire.
God, yeah. No. Nobody from Texas is getting out. I mean,
No.
there's a few of them we're going to give dual citizenship.
We definitely want to let, but yeah.
Our angel nerd lives in Texas and she gets dual citizenship. The cool people get dual citizenship, but the rest of these assholes, no more for you. And we'll just do without visiting Texas, I suppose. I've done it without my whole life, and I'll just have to.
Something tells me Mike Sylvia has not thought any of this through.
Well, why would he?
Yeah.
I mean, there are people.
Speech, right?
There are people in our state who want, to secede and separate and make
from Chicago.
Yeah.
Because then Illinois will be white. That's what they want. They want a white state to live in. Well, they can move to Iowa.
Right. Can we be more like Missouri? Yeah. Okay. I suppose if you want to. I don't want to. I don't think a lot of people want to move a century and a half back in terms of progress and economy and technology. But if you want to, that's great. You go, live on the porch and.
Yeah. And the good Democrats of Missouri, like my colleague Heather, Crooks and Liars.
Yeah.
They can have dual citizenship.
Perfectly okay. You're more than welcome. We'll be like your Canada. You can come up here anytime you want. We welcome you up here. If you want to live up here, that's great. If you like it down there, that's fine. But we don't want your filthy neighbors to come up here because they're monsters. They elect monsters. They're happy with monsters representing them. They're clearly, inbred morons who are. Well, no,
I don't think they're inbred morons. I think they're white nationalists. I really think calling them stupid and calling them names is fun. But what's going on is a terror. They are terrified of a non-white leadership in this country, and they want to ensure white leadership.
Why are they terrified of it, Blue Gal?
Well, because they think that black people are going to treat them the way they treat black people.
Is that likely what's going to happen?
No.
Then are they therefore stupid?
I think they're being governed by fear and racism.
I think fear makes you stupid, and stupid makes you afraid.
You can say racist or stupid. I get it, but I think racism is the enemy here.
I think racism is strong, Blue Gal. I don't know why you're defending these racists on this show. Maybe you and John McWhorter want to get a room. I don't know. I'm standing up for America. I don't know where the hell you think you live.
All right. Why don't you do your no labels, I told you so dance now, Drift Class?
Okay. I will do my clear the dance floor. I'm a very tall guy with very big feet, and I have no natural ability to dance. So this is going to be awkward and unpleasant to watch. But this week, people suddenly noticed that the No Labels organization are fucking crazy. That they're Republicans. They're a bunch of right-leaning, goobers with a lot of money. They are basically Joe Lieberman and David Brooks's wet dream come true. And this week they came out with a bold campaign to take down the opponents of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin.
Yeah, by doing what, Drift Glass?
By putting up posters on their website saying your choice, and in black and white, some guy cynical, and Kyrsten Sinema in bright colors, courageous. Courageous.
I think it was Ruben Gallego.
You might be right. I can't say for sure. And the other poster was Joe
Manchin.
It was Joe Manchin on one side and Bernie Sanders on the other. Partisan, pragmatic. Pragmatic is better. And so you're saying that basically the entire Democratic Party is wrong, and these two assholes who are a bone in the throat of democracy are right. Because No Labels, as I wrote, literally 2 days after they were chartered back in 2010, he said, now reading from his post from December 15th of 2010, entitled Dead Center, Political Cowardice now has its own movement. And this is who they were. They were always going to be this. This was going to be, let's see. Yep. It was Mark Penn, Nancy Jacobson, Joe Scarborough. And it was just a sleazy bunch of Beltway centrist both-siderists who right after Barack Obama gets elected suddenly decides that the extremes on both sides are just crazy. There's Barack Obama, who's clearly a Kenyan usurping socialist who wants to kill your white grandmother. And then there's the Tea Party, who might seem a little extreme. The crazy racist lunatics who were screaming about so we need a centrist party. We need a centrist movement. And it really is
this was the Bush off machine too that you talked about.
Oh, absolutely. This is a variation of the Bush off machine. These are people who were right down the line Bushies, right down the, and they couldn't acknowledge that the right was the problem, and they couldn't acknowledge that the Tea Party was a mob of racists, and they couldn't acknowledge that Barack Obama was actually kind of a center right Eisenhower Republican, and so they needed to preserve. This is again the Blumhouse thing. They needed to preserve this fantasy that there's this vast unrepresented middle full of pragmatic problem solvers who just want to solve problems and do process things. And this was Barack Obama's whole campaign. This was exactly what he campaigned on. I don't care who gets credit for what. I don't need my name on anything. We just want to solve problems with the people across the aisle. And the people across the aisle said, fuck you, you scary black monster. We're going to destroy your presidency at any cost. And the people at No Label said, ooh, seems like both sides of this argument are pretty extreme. We better form a little pile in the middle called the No Labels people, who'll be like the problem solvers. And they have accomplished nothing in the 12 years they've existed.
Except they've started labeling people at No Labels.
They started labeling people now. Yes, as many people pointed out on Twitter. So the No Labels people are labeling people now. How interesting. But it's a scam. It's a grift. And because I had been writing about politics long enough and the media long enough, you could smell the grift coming off these people. You could smell what it was. It was just the monetization of the David Brooks, Joe Lieberman, third way, third party, the extremes on both sides of the problem, bullshit that dominates the mainstream media and dominates Washington think tanks. How can we make money off of this? And they created this shitty scam called No Labels, which is still going and makes a lot of money and runs campaigns about, the noble center. And it has spawned, and they were successful in their own little world, because every time a Republican gets kicked out of the Republican Party or leaves the Republican Party or is run out of the Republican Party, like Adam Kinzinger, suddenly they decide it's time to start their own movement.
Right.
Maybe some sort of third way, country over party
action committee. Right.
Yeah, let's not talk about partisanship or politics or who's right or wrong. Let's just solve problems. And because they've all discovered there's a small number of extremely ignorant rich people who desperately want to believe that there's a big center out there full of pragmatic people who have no political ties to anybody, and that it's a money pit, it's a money hole, it's a money mine. And all you got to do is drill your shaft into this big pile of stupid rich people, and you can make a fortune of it. This is what Matthew Dowd was doing before he decided to become a Democrat. This is what Adam Kinzinger has this same movement. David Jolly has his own movement. Charlie Sykes has his own movement, and they're all the same fucking movement. And it's all the extremes on both sides are terrible. We need to find the pragmatic centrists. And then we're going to magically turn both parties into irrelevancies because we are going to solve all the problems. And it has never worked. It will never work. But it's enough stupid people in the country with enough money to keep funding these idiots. And my only claim to fame is that I saw this coming 2 days after they were chartered.
Absolutely.
And 12 years
now
later,
you can smell these movements coming.
Oh yeah, mile away. And you and I have talked about the Purple Project.
The Purple
and the
Project.
Third Way Project. And then blah, there's a hundred of them.
As soon as you see it, you know it now. Yeah. It's the desperate attempt to cash in on Schultzberger style money of both siderism from Republicans. That's what it is. Yeah.
And
Drift Glass.
Yeah, Blue Gal.
You want to do a news roundup?
I'd love to do a news roundup with you.
Okay. Senate Republicans blocked voting rights legislation for the 5th time. And then Democrats failed to unite because of 2 people behind changing the Senate's filibuster rules to pass it anyway, despite all 50 Democrats supporting the voting rights bill. First, Democrats fell 10 votes short of the 60 needed to break the Republican filibuster. Then Democrats Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema joined with Republicans in rejecting an effort to reinstate the talking filibuster, which would have allowed the elections legislation to pass by simple majority vote. We need to elect 3 or more senators to eliminate Sinema and Manchin from having any say in these things anymore.
You mean Joe Manchin, the pragmatist, and Kristen Sinema, the principled person?
Nope.
Yeah.
Sinema's in really bad shape, by the way, in Arizona.
Yeah. Okay. It's a few years till anyone can do anything about it.
2 years. She's up in 2024, and she may not run. She may just go and cash in.
Yeah. I would if I were her. If I were her, I'd hate myself every day for the rest of my life. But yeah, cash in.
I don't think there's any risk of Kristen Sinema hating herself.
No. She loves herself too much to ever hate herself.
Right.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said that the U.S. offered Russia a, quote, serious diplomatic path forward to de-escalating military threats against Ukraine.
The 7-day average of COVID-19 deaths reached 2,188 a day, the highest level since February of 2021, and up about 1,000 per day from 2 months ago. That's Omicron. Omicron infections, however, are resulting in fewer hospitalizations than during the Delta wave in the fall. Pfizer, meanwhile, has begun a clinical trial to evaluate a new Omicron-specific vaccine.
I tell you, an age of miracles, honey.
Mm-hmm.
Federal prosecutors are reviewing the fake Electoral College certifications that declared Trump the winner of states that he lost. The certificates contain the signatures of Trump supporters who falsely claimed to be the right electors in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, and New Mexico, all states that Biden won. The attorney generals in at least 2 of the 7 states, Michigan and New Mexico, say they have referred investigations to federal prosecutors.
There's gonna and several of these fake electors videotaped themselves signing it. Mm-hmm. We talked about that last week.
There'll be a lot more M&M scandals showing up on Fox News.
More
Once
M&M
these people
scandals.
start. Yeah.
Minnie Mouse wore a pantsuit. Oh my God.
Right. Just like Hillary.
A draft executive order prepared for Donald Trump would have authorized the Secretary of Defense to have National Guard troops seize voting machines following the 2020 election and release an assessment 60 days later, well after Trump was set to leave office. Additionally, the draft order dated December 16th, 2020, but never signed by Trump, would have appointed a special counsel to, quote, institute all criminal and civil proceedings as appropriate based on the evidence, quote unquote, collected. The document was titled Remarks on National Healing. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
And was part of a trove of documents released by the National Archives to the committee, to the J6 committee, after the Supreme Court ruled against Trump's claim of executive privilege.
Yeah.
Jamie Raskin was on in the past 24 hours saying, "Oh, Trump knew it was a coup."
Of course he did.
Of course he knew what he's doing.
Speaking of Donald Trump, Trump called it very, very unfair that the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot has asked Ivanka Trump to sit for an interview. It's a very unfair situation for my children, Trump said, evidencing concern for his children for the first time in his life. It's a disgrace what's going on. They'll go after children. These are adults who were unpaid, unvetted, White House staff, White House advisors.
Profiting from being in the White House.
In the millions off of this. These were not fucking children.
Hundreds of millions.
These were criminal co-conspirators. Mm-hmm. Michael Cohen, meanwhile, said Trump told him in 2012 that if one of his kids had to go to prison over family business to, quote, make sure it was Trump Jr. and not Ivanka. Look, I know one of them's got to go.
Not my girlfriend, Ivanka. I mean, so daughter. Lovely. I mean.
Just don't let her go to jail, Michael. Put everyone else in jail. It is astonishing to me the degree of denial the average moron Republican voter has to constantly exist in to pretend that none of this is going on.
M&M's, Driftglass, M&M's.
Lots of M&M's. Yeah, going to hear a lot more about out-of-wed pregnancies among M&M's.
M&M's and go-go boots. Where are my go-go boots? Because Nancy Sinatra was hot the last time I got a chubby.
She was so hot. Mm-hmm.
The Arizona Democratic Party censured Senator Kristen Sinema as a result of her failure to do whatever it takes to ensure the health of our democracy.
Way to go, Arizona. The McMinn County School Board in Tennessee just voted to ban Mouse, a Pulitzer Prize-winning graphic novel about the Holocaust. The vote to ban it was 10-0.
That's the home of Senator Marsha Blackburn.
Marsha Blackburn, who I had to walk away from yesterday.
Yeah.
Because it makes me physically ill to hear her talk.
Yep. And she's talking about nothing.
Oh, no.
She's got to talk about China communism bad. A Mississippi mayor is withholding $110,000 from the local library because it offers some LGBTQ books. When the librarian objected, the mayor responded that the library can serve whoever we wanted, but that he only serves the great Lord above.
That would be Donald Trump.
Yes, it would.
Meanwhile, in Mississippi, something cool happened. School bus drivers went on strike for 1 hour and secured a pay increase of $5 an hour. Good for them.
I'm telling you, strikes.
Well, there was some disparity between their already low salary and emergency salaries. They were going to pay former bus drivers to come in because they don't have enough bus drivers.
Right.
And
right.
The drivers said, "Wait a minute! If they're doing the same job, they deserve the same pay."
Yeah.
And they threatened to go on strike for like an hour, and everybody said, "You know what? You're right." And collective action in a righteous cause can move mountains. It
works, and it's working more and more because the job market is that way.
Hey, speaking of collective actions, didn't Dan Bongino have a collective action happen to him this week?
He got permanently banned from YouTube, Driftglass.
Oh,
That's going to cost him some serious money.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And speaking of social media sites, they can have Joe Rogan or Neil Young wrote in a letter to his manager and label. Not both. Young demands Spotify remove his music over the, quote, false information about vaccines. And goddamn good for him. And
Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife now admit the whole evangelical power couple thing was an act. Because of my last name, people think I'm a religious person, but I'm not, Falwell told Vanity Fair magazine. We had to put on an act, his wife added.
Show of hands of people who were never fooled by the Falwell Act.
Seriously.
Show of hands of people who sent money and their children to Liberty University because they're that fucking stupid.
Mm-hmm.
COVID positive Sarah Palin has now dined al fresco on the Upper East Side 2 nights in a row. After eating at Campagnola Tuesday, she returned to Elio's last night, where she reportedly flouted the city's anti-vax mandate this weekend.
From Keith Olbermann on the occasion of MSNBC's announcement that they would be adding yet another hour to Joe Scarborough's 3-hour morning show. We're going to have 4 hours of Morning Joe?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
What you are witnessing, said Keith Olbermann, is in real time is the neutralizing of MSNBC and a return to its previous failed emphasis on quote-unquote balanced news, plus another hour of Franz von Papen Scarborough, who desperately normalized Trump in 2015-16 by whoring himself out in a bid to become VP.
And I'm not sure about that last little part.
I'm not sure about that last little part.
But
I think
he
wanted to keep his relationship with Mika quiet.
I do know that that Joe Scarborough and everyone else working at MSNBC has mysteriously forgotten everything prior to 2016 because Joe Scarborough was one of Donald Trump's biggest boosters.
Yep.
Had him on a show.
And I've got the receipts to prove it. Once a month had him phone in on a schedule. Yep.
And helped coach him on his first speech in front of Congress.
Yep.
Went to Congress as a guest, applauded his speech during that. And suddenly Joe Scarborough forgot all about that.
He is screaming at people who have forgotten how bad Trump was.
Yeah. Because
now he's allowed to scream at them. Yes.
And now he can scream at them for 4 hours instead of 3. Now in local news, this is from the indispensable Capital Facts, Rich Miller and the Capital Facts, which is a wonderful source of local news at the capital city. A study has found that big Chicago youth homicide spikes were due, at least in part, to Bruce Rauner's budget impasse. This is from a Northwestern University press release. In 2016, homicides among Chicagoans aged 15 to 24 drastically spiked. Then in 2017, youth homicides boomeranged back to lower pre-2015 levels. One likely contributor to this is the 2-year pause in state funding, reports a new Northwestern University study. Starting July 1st, 2015, the state of Illinois underwent a 2-year budget impasse, the longest standstill of its kind in the state's history. During that time, funding was cut for state programs that serve Chicago's most vulnerable populations. This includes after-school programs, recreational leagues, summer job programs, social services, and counseling. When the state came back to its budget impasse in 2015 and the budgets were really cut, the staff was laid off and services were closed, It temporarily correlates with the big uptick in youth homicide, said corresponding study author Marianne Mason, associate professor of emergency medicine at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine. Then when the budget was reinstated in 2017, you can see the big decline in homicides. So if you'd like to secede from the state, secede from Chicago, because Chicago is so violent, remember, a big contributing cause was Governor Bruce fucking Rauner and
Republican
Bruce
governor.
Rauner, who decided he would go to war with unions. He would keep his campaign promise to break the unions by simply not having a budget for a couple of years and forcing them to do his bidding. That's where you need to lay.
And that led to more murders in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Sure did. It sure did.
And also from the AP, more out-of-state women are coming to Illinois for abortions. Big surprise there. The number of women from out of state who've come to Illinois to have an abortion is climbing. As neighboring states enact increasingly stringent abortion laws, Illinois has seen a significant rise in the number of women who have come to the state for abortions. According to the most recent Illinois Department of Public Health data available, nearly 9,700 out-of-state women terminated a pregnancy in Illinois in 2020, compared to just over 7,500 in 2019. That's still really high, and that is because of Indiana, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Advocates on both sides of the debate over abortion said the increase was expected in large part because nearby states, and actually every state surrounding Illinois, has been enacting new laws to make it more difficult to have an abortion and to put more regulations on clinics. These numbers could climb even higher depending on what the U.S. Supreme Court decides on one of the most significant abortion cases in years, that of Dobbs v. Jackson, a Mississippi law that prohibits abortion past 15 weeks gestation. If the court upholds the law, something many experts expect to happen, it could determine the fate of Roe v. Wade, the 1973 case that established the right to terminate a pregnancy nationwide. That would leave abortion rights up to the states, and with experts predicting about half the country would ban or significantly restrict abortion, including all of those adjacent to Illinois, as I said, it could drive the numbers in the state far higher.
Yeah, that's, and if that doesn't get people out to vote,
I don't know what will.
If a national rollback by conservative Republicans who've been stuck on that court for years to do just this one thing of a basic human right, basic medical service for women, for over half the people in this country, doesn't get people out to vote the assholes out of office, I don't know what will. Now, today we've added a special feature called Writer's Corner. This is because whenever a friend of mine is feeling inadequate as a writer, she reminds herself that this woman is a published author on Amazon, and here's one of her books. If I start laughing, I'm sorry, because this just cracked me up.
This is an actual book on Amazon.
These are two actual books on Amazon by the same author. She was supposed to cure the coronavirus. Instead, she fell in love with it. Dr. Alexa Ashingcrofton-Ford, which is the actual name of the person, is part of a crack team of scientists tasked with finding the cure to the devastating coronavirus. Little did she know she would end up falling in love with it in this steamy viral erotica. Kissing Coronavirus is a steamy tale about forbidden love and the dark desires come to life. The book is by M.J. Edwards. It's her debut attempt, and it is her effort to try to pay the bills following her job loss. And apparently it was successful enough that she published a follow-up novel. What's the only thing sexier than sex? Power! Bethany Boyker just cannot find good sex. She's tried everything. Or should that be everyone? But there's nobody out there who pushes her buttons, flexing their incredible displays of power in the way that gets her juices flowing, so to speak. That is, until she reads the president's Twitter feed. Then, Beth figures out exactly how to get her juices flowing. Penetrated by the president's Twitter feed is the follow-up to M.J. Edwards' smash hit debut, Kissing the Coronavirus. Follow her on Twitter at M.J. Edwards, author. And I conclude with, there's a valuable lesson here for us all.
I just can't believe these are real, but you say they are.
They're on Amazon. You can order them. They have book covers. I don't know if they're real or not, but they made me smile harder than anything has made me smile in a very long time.
The whole week, I know.
I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting here with writer's block. I can't think of a goddamn thing to write. And I go, you know what?
She got paid to write this.
I can just write anything. I can write any goddamn thing I want. And you know what? Maybe I'm not so inadequate as a writer.
Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Lucy. Lucy is a 16-year-old all-white beauty of a cat. She's also a lap kitty. And of course, Lucy eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store direct, your cats will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. You can visit Lucy at our Facebook page or website, and you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, or you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. #Jail to Joy. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job, and we love our job. Approximately 1% of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution, and you can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. Both our PayPal and postal address information is there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to. And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties would like to announce that their debut novel, Humping Chuck Todd's Hairpiece, drops next week. Shelley Von Windsor Sington Forth believed nothing could satisfy her in that way. And then, one Sunday morning.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left Podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license, copyright 2022, BGBG Productions Incorporated.